I think everybody knew that Joe Douglas made a mistake. But how big of a mistake? Well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about here on Boy Green Daily.
Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
What's poppin', everybody? Paul Esden Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to Boy Green Daily. We're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, or if you're watching after the fact or the audio-only version, we appreciate you. Make sure you guys like the video on YouTube. Hit subscribe down below. We appreciate the support. Every Friday, this man joins me on the show before we get to our main topic of choice, which is a Joe Douglas blunder of epic proportions. Let's get to Italy Jet, fellow Jets content creator. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ciao, buongiorno, everyone, everywhere where you're at. Damn, what is going on again?
Yeah.
Again. Every Friday, Boy Green. Every Friday.
Yeah, it's always something. And here's the latest blunder. Let's get right into it. There's a full article on our YouTube description. If you'd like to follow along during the program, feel free to do so. I think, I won't speak for you, Italy. I'll let you speak for yourself. At this moment in time, although there's been a couple of it's a roller coaster. Sometimes there's moments where I'm like, oh, this is going to happen. Other moments, no, it's not. I have basically accepted the fact that it is extremely unlikely that Bryce Huff is back on the New York Jets in 2024. It sounds like he's going to reach the open market. Again, when I say sounds, technically speaking, today is Friday. The Jets could re-sign Bryce Huff anywhere from today before Monday, technically it's 12 o'clock when legal tampering period starts. So from now to 11:59 on Monday, the Jets could re-sign Bryce Huff right now, and he won't touch the market. We've seen it with Kevin Dotson with the Rams. They're like, nope, we're going to keep him. Mike Evans with the Buccaneers, we're going to keep him. So we could get into how they could keep him in a second. But it seems like right now it's a foregone conclusion he's leaving. Do you agree or disagree, Italy?
Yeah, he's leaving. He's gone.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So with that being said, right, that some of us have accepted that he's going to be gone, this clip I'm about to play you may piss you off. Now, here we're going to this. NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero joined Eric Allen live at the New York Jets Radio Row desk and gave this interesting nugget to Eric Allen. Let's just roll the footage. Here we go.
Bryce Huff. Joe Douglas told reporters yesterday here at the podium that he does not intend to tag him. With that being said, discussions continue. What kind of market's going to be out there for Huff?
It's going to be a great market for him because Joe was getting calls on Bryce Huff going back to camp last year before he produced. And then again at the trade deadline, there were people coming after Bryce Huff. And, at one point, probably early in training camp, I thought maybe Bryce Huff was getting traded just because there was such a level of interest. But what they were seeing on a daily basis was this is a dude, and he is coming on right when he needed to. Free agency year, there's no better time here.
Double-digit sacks.
I think it's going to be a really strong market. Danielle Hunter will have a really good market. There are edge guys that are going to be available in free agency this year. But, the going rate on that, I mean, there's pass rushers, obviously, who make close to $30 million at this point. Huff's not going to get there, but if he's pushing 20, I mean, that wouldn't totally shock me.
So this is where it gets frustrating. In case you missed it at the beginning of that clip, Tom Pelissero said that Joe Douglas's phone was blowing up for trade calls on Bryce Huff dating back to training camp and then throughout the season until we got to the NFL trade deadline. And I will throw this on top. I've heard that the trade calls went all the way back to a year ago at this time, way before training camp, that the Jets were receiving calls on Bryce Huff. And that was back in the days where they were considering slapping the restricted franchise tag tender, an RFA, on Huff, which was for $4.3 million, a second-round tender. Now, no one sacrificed the second-round pick, but maybe someone would have sacrificed something less. It seems like they would because the calls came. So here's the frustrating portion for the audience. If okay, I understand if Joe Douglas didn't want to trade Bryce Huff in training camp. This was an all-in team. They had Aaron Rodgers. They planned on making the playoffs and winning games, and you want a young pass rusher for that season. Of course, makes total sense, and maybe you want to re-sign the guy. So him, Joe Douglas, rejecting trade calls in training camp makes sense. What doesn't make sense is we get to the trade deadline. At that point, obviously, Aaron Rodgers is long gone. Zach Wilson is the quarterback of this team. It is unlikely this team is making a legitimate playoff run with Zach Wilson at quarterback. So Joe Douglas has to ask himself several questions. Will we be able to retain Bryce Huff? Are we going to sign him? Is that the plan to keep him a member of the New York Jets? If yes, of course you don't trade him. But if not, or if, as we found out, they didn't place the franchise tag on him, then exploring trade calls that were coming in, not you calling out, but trade calls coming in, then you owe it to your fan base. You owe it to everybody to, wow, for a rental, because Bryce Huff was on a contract year last year, we can trade him for an asset right now. And he chose not to. So that was a point of frustration I saw from fans yesterday, quote tweeting my tweet there, and just letting Joe Douglas have it, Italy.
I mean, yeah, everything you said, I agree with. I mean, it's one of those things. We couldn't get something back for him. Like, come on, man. I thought that was the old us, like I thought we were hitting new times, but no, it's definitely not. It's still the same. And I know we're gonna let him walk. I just feel like we're gonna let him walk because we need the money. We need the money for something else. So and a lot of people in the chat have said the same thing, and I agree with you. I just think I want something for him, and it would have been a little bit high. I think whether it was a draft pick, whether it was a wide receiver coming, whatever it would have may be, but I really wanted something for him.
Yeah, and I think you should. And again, I love Bryce Huff. He's been on my show. I've talked to Bryce throughout this offseason. We've messaged back and forth a handful of times, and I want him to get the bag. No doubt about it.
Great dude. Great dude. Great family man, too.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, he checks off all of those boxes. But the thing that is again, frustrating is if the Jets are relying on a compensatory pick coming in 2025. First off, I don't want to be in the business of letting 25-year-old pass rushers coming off double-digit sack seasons go, and then a year later, I get a fruitcake for Christmas. I'm not in the business of that if that was to even happen. And then number two, there's no guarantee the fruitcake is coming in the form of a 2025 third, because what Bryce Huff gets on the open market is compared to what the Jets spend in free agency. And for what everyone says, the Jets are going to spend up the wazoo in free agency, which would nullify and cancel the pick you might get back for Bryce Huff, which rules that out. That's why we go back to the surface here. That's why if you traded Bryce Huff at the deadline for a second, a third, even a third and a fifth, whatever the combination was, that was guaranteed comp that you're not guaranteed to get with the compensatory pick. Plus, that draft picks you would have gotten right then in October would have been available right now for the Jets to trade up, to do whatever they want. There are picks to use now. That comp pick you can't even touch. You don't even know if you have it until a year from today. That's the problem, and that's the frustrating part, that they're not keeping Bryce Huff. It doesn't seem like they had a plan to keep Bryce Huff, and now it seems like the only way that Bryce Huff stays is if he hits the open market and his market is underwhelming. It's not what we expect. It's not pushing 20 as Tom Pelissero threw that number out for 20 million a year. It's not 19, 18, 17. It's like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that ballpark. If it's there, Huff goes out to market and says, holy crap, it's not anywhere near what I thought. I'll come back to the Jets and let's see what can happen. That, to me, is the only path that Bryce Huff comes back. And I'm going to be honest, as the days progress, we did hear that report from Connor Hughes on the Jake Asman show where he heard a smaller number, which kind of gave us a little bit of a speck of hope, like, oh, maybe we can bring him back. But outside of that one report, it's been mostly on the other side from everything I've heard about the money being higher. And that means the Jets will lose him and lose him for nothing. That's just bad GMing from general manager Joe Douglas. There's just no other way to put it.
There's no other way to even talk about, even outside of the conversation that we're having. It's not a good move on the franchise. It's not a good move for his job, acting like it's a risk right now. It is a risk. His job is at risk, and he needs to do everything in his power to make this team what it could and should be. So, yes, 100%. We could have gotten maybe a second-round pick for him. I would even
Sure,
love that.
maybe.
And,
Yep.
and even the chat, I've seen everyone in the chat. I would love to sign him back for about 12 to 14, 15 million. That would be great. But as everyone keeps reporting, and just like you said about Connor Hughes, it seems like he's going to get a little bit more than that. So I'm like, okay, well, if you should have tagged him, then maybe we could have. But right now, it just doesn't seem like it right now. But anything could happen.
And also, if there is this level of trade interest that Tom Pelissero shares that there was, and I heard even before all of the dates he said there was, how could you not tag and trade him? The Chiefs are doing it with L'Jarius Sneed, and I get it. L'Jarius Sneed has a lot of proven production, and Bryce Huff is coming off a double-digit sack season. But people were calling, so the double-digit sack season didn't happen until after the trade deadline. So people were interested before the double-digit sack season. They were interested in October. They were interested in training camp when there was no prior production. They were in love with the analytics. That's the part that to me is kind of like, wow, it looks like we could have tagged and traded this guy. And again, I reiterate, it didn't have to be for a first round pick. That would have been great. A second round pick, that would have been great. Quite frankly, anything you could have gotten would have been an immediate asset to help now. And I'm going to be honest, I've said this before, but I'll say it again as we're referencing Bryce Huff here. As a Jets fan, I feel robbed if Bryce Huff walks out the door because we didn't get to see the vision. We didn't get to see Aaron Rodgers play on this team with Bryce Huff as it currently stands and throw touchdowns and have leads, and Bryce Huff pins his ears back and goes crazy because obviously the Aaron Rodgers went down a couple of snaps into the season. So if he goes somewhere else and dominates, it's going to be like, damn, what could have been if he was playing on that Jets defense? And I understand it's the allocation of assets. A lot of us have advocated that you need to pour those assets into the offensive side of the ball, and any money and things that you put into defense, like a significant contract for Bryce Huff, let's call it whatever you want, 12, 13, 14, 15 million per year. That will take away from your wide receivers. That could take away from your offensive linemen and things of that nature. So it seems like the Jets are going to like, well, all right, Will McDonald, slap on the ass. Time to roll, baby. And maybe Will is going to be great. He looks really talented, and he seems like a good kid. We'll see. But that's the bet that the Jets are making, and we'll see if it's the correct bet.
I agree. I hope it pans out the way it wants to. But as of right now, it's
Yeah, very, very odd. All right, let's go to a couple of questions here on Boy Green Daily. John Sauer, part of the Boy Green Superfan Club. Thank you for your YouTube membership, John. We really appreciate you. Any interest in Mike Williams? So here's the thing: the LA Chargers wide receiver, Mike Williams. Mike is supremely talented. He's a massive dude, 50-50 balls, red zone, vertical threat. He takes the top off of defense. All of those parts are interesting to me. The things that scare you are injuries, of course. That's plagued him throughout his career. And then the other thing is disappearing. So I've had him in fantasy before, and I've just watched Chargers games for whatever reason, because I'm a glutton for punishment, apparently. But, I've seen Mike Williams just disappear for stretches. Is that the Chargers offense? Is that him? I don't know why, but he just disappears for stretches. Like, you're like, wait, is Mike Williams even on the roster? And he's playing snaps and like nothing's happening. So that part scares me a little bit, because if the Jets bring him in, he's got to be an important piece, an important cog to the machine. But yeah, I mean, sure, there's interest. The market dried up very quickly, where Calvin Ridley right now is the number one name. I'm interested in a guy like Mike Williams. What about you, Italy?
No, I'm not really interested in. I'm not really interested. Sorry, can't speak to him. I can't. I'm not really interested in Mike Williams. I think he was a great player in college. I liked him in college. I liked him in the beginning with the Chargers. But I really want like a guy like Ridley. I know they're hearing something about Tyler Boyd. I would even bring him in. I'm just not really set on Williams as of right now because of the injury history too, as well. We need a consistent wide receiver along with Garrett Wilson that doesn't have a big injury history like he does. So I'm as of right now, I'm a no.
Okay. I did write a piece last night. It's going to post this morning on our Facebook page. So I asked a question at Albert Breer in Sports Illustrated. He answered it in his mailbag. I said, first off, Aaron Rodgers recruiting. We'll probably do that on an episode coming up this weekend. And then, hey, who are some potential Jets targets to watch out for? And he mentioned Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver Tyler Boyd. Now, that's not a sexy name. It's not like a ooh, ah kind of name, but he's wildly effective former Pitt player, and I think I wrote it in the article. He has had, outside of his second season in the league, he was really injured. But outside of that, he has had at least 600 receiving yards and 54 receptions in every season of his career. So he's a very high floor player. That intrigues me. He's probably not wide receiver 2. He's wide receiver 3, but he could be an occasional wide receiver 2 if injuries were to happen. So Tyler Boyd, I like. The value's pretty good. He's set to receive $8.25 million on the open market. That's number 25 in the league among the highest paid wide receivers in football. So it's a good value play from a contractual perspective. And number 2, high floor player, really nice. You want those kind of, you know what you're getting from that. Like we just talked about Mike Williams. It's interesting. We're talking about these guys back to back. Mike Williams, you never know what you're getting on a week to week basis. Some days he could go for 200 yards. Some days he'll go for 0. Like Tyler Boyd, he's probably never going for 200, but what he's probably going for is 50 to 75 each week. Like he's just nickel and diming you, all reliable catching the football. So that part of the equation I like a lot. You guys can check that out on the Heavy on Jets page. If you'd like to see more about that article and the Albert Breer connection to Boyd, I think that makes a lot of sense. He was called the top wide receiver value in all of free agency by Bleacher Report heading into the open market next week. So he's a guy I really like. So I'm a big Tyler Boyd guy for sure.
Again, hey, what do you think about? Sorry to cut you off. What do you think about Sutton? What do you think of Sutton and OBJ?
So let's go first to Sutton, because Sutton you'll have to trade for. OBJ would be a free agent. Sutton I like a lot. Bigger guy. It's very similar to Mike Williams from that perspective, from a size perspective. He's a bigger guy. He scores a lot of touchdowns. He's a lot friendlier on the cap, although Mike Williams would probably be cut. So then you'd renegotiate a contract. But Cortland Sutton, as is, his contract is very nice. He's under contract for 2 years at a very reasonable rate. I think it's like 14-10, might be 14-15, 14-14 on a per year basis. So each of those will cover very nicely. Good value considering what the market's going to be. Cortland Sutton intrigues me a lot. Again, it would probably cost maybe one of your fourths. Remember, the Jets have 2 fourths because of the Jacob Martin trade with the Broncos. So a fifth turned into a fourth, and they had their own fourth. So they have 2 fourths floating around. Third is high with 72, but I'd probably be willing to flip 72 if other things happen in free agency, like Ridley goes off the board, and you're like, geez, who the hell is playing wide receiver? All right, let's get a guy, and let's go Sutton. So I would be willing to potentially give him a fourth. Or potentially 72. So, but I would be willing to give him a fourth. Let me clarify. And a third, it's a little rich, but again, if rubber meets the road and they push me up to it, like you go to a pawn shop, right? I'm going to sell this watch. I go in there in my head, I say, I want $500 for this. But in my head, I'm like, well, I'd take 200, So that's it. Like I go over to the Broncos. I give up a 4th round pick. Okay. You push me, I'll give up a third. That's basically how I evaluate it from that perspective. And OBJ, he's a polarizing name. I get it. I want OBJ. I love OBJ as wide receiver 3 because, to be honest, he wants to play with Aaron Rodgers. He wants to go back to New York. He made that very clear. The Jets aggressively pursued him last year. I know his last season with the Ravens was not great, but to be honest with you, that means he's going to come cheaper than he did last year. So you're going to get him at a value. You're going to get him with a chip on his shoulder. You're going to get him coming back to New York, which is what he wants to do. And he wants to play with Aaron Rodgers. And high tide rises all boats. Playing with Aaron Rodgers is going to make everybody better. Conklin, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, OBJ. Give me OBJ as wide receiver 3. That's how I see him. Again, you have to have a path. You have to have a role for the guy. I know that's going to piss a lot of people off. I would not be surprised if OBJ is a Jet. And as a matter of fact, we heard from Josine Anderson, there is mutual interest between OBJ and the Jets. And I'm not surprised by that. So sign me the hell up, baby. I'm all in on OBJ.
Corey Davis even might come, maybe. I heard that's been really interesting. I would love to see Chuck Clark come back.
Sure.
I want Morstead and Zerline to come back too as well. But I think I like the Corey Davis move. I like the Sutton move. OBJ, it just depends. Depends on the price.
What do you mean it depends? What do you mean it depends?
Hey, it just depends on me. I wasn't really okay. I like OBJ, but I think him in this team right now, I'm more looking at something else.
Okay. Well, I hate you because OBJ is the man, baby. He's my guy. I gotta go with OBJ.
Hey, agree to disagree for now. Maybe in a week or two, maybe it might change. But right now, I'm sticking to that.
Okay. Ricky in New York says consistency is what we need, and that is Sutton. That's a good point.
I like Sutton.
Yeah, but God bless. Yes. Let me finish off with any other final questions here. I see we have a few. I'm going to try to sort through these. There it is, Jared B. Also part of our Boy Green Superfan Club. Thanks for the YouTube membership, supporting the channel every month, buddy. We appreciate it. How about the glut of free agent safeties? It's definitely a buyer's market. Yeah, there's plenty of names out there. Justin Simmons, Jordan Poyer. I mean, there's some
It goes
tasty
on
names.
and on.
Plus, there's all the Jets guys that are out there too. So again, personally, it's not need number 1, 2, 3, 4,
Right.
5. Like
Right.
I'm going offensive line, I'm going wide receiver, I'm going back. I'm going a lot of different directions before safety. However, if you can convince one of these guys, I talked about it on the live show yesterday at 3:00. If you can tell Justin Simmons, hey buddy, our Jets defense is already a Super Bowl defense, but with you, it could be from here to here. Sign a 1-year deal, play with Aaron Rodgers. Let's go win a ring. Let's go make a chase. Sign with us, reestablish your value, and go make a bag next year. Maybe it'll be from us. Maybe it'll be from someone else. But let's go have fun for a year. Come over to New York. You got dumped by Denver. Let's go win a championship. So that would be a compelling pitch I would make. Justin Simmons, I revealed it yesterday. Who are the top 5 players I'd call when the legal tampering period opens? Number 5 on my list was Justin Simmons. I would love Justin Simmons. He's a multi-time All-Pro. No one has more interceptions than him since 2016, 30 picks. He's a playmaker. That's exactly what it'd be a perfect yin to the yang of what the secondary is with Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, MC2. Oh, yes. Justin Simmons would be a guy I love.
I like how you did that right there.
Okay.
For me, Simmons and Diggs. I would really like that.
Diggs. Oh, Quandre Diggs. Oh, yes.
I would like either one of those. Simmons is good too. I like Simmons as well.
Okay. Ricky in New York again here. Paul, how would you feel if we end up with Darnell Mooney and Curtis Samuel plus a 3rd-round wide receiver? I love Mooney a lot. So Mooney is super underrated, and he just needs ops. And now, bad on Mooney, if you want to call it this. So Mooney apparently was offered a deal by the Bears before last season for 3 years and like $10 million plus per year. He said, no, I'm going to bet on myself. They end up having a bad year. So now his market kind of plummets a little bit. Maybe the Jets can take advantage of that, get him on a nice deal. We'll see. Wide receiver free agents, as we saw with Alan Lazard, sometimes people get overpaid. So maybe even despite the season, we'll still get that. But good question here. And Curtis Samuel is a guy that's been like connected to the Jets for like 1,000 years. It's been written in the hieroglyphics, like the Jets and Curtis Samuel will one day the paths will align and cross. He's a versatile guy, go gadget guy. He could be a poor man's version of Mecole Hardman, basically, or a rich man's version, depending on your perspective. That he could get the jet sweeps. He could do some of those kind of crazy things. He would be an interesting guy to add to the room. So yes, Curtis Samuel, again, we've been talking about it for 1,000 years. Mooney is a very interesting guy. I don't think has gotten enough play in our conversations.
Yeah. Mooney, I'm leaning a little towards more, but and Curtis, no, I don't want Samuel. I'm sorry.
Fair enough. And then Avital is on Italy's side. Love Boy Green, but no OBJ. That's
hey.
I tried.
Hey, you tried.
What are you going to do? So to finish off the show, we got 400 plus people in here. So guys, thank you for joining us. The show's been blowing up over the last week or two with a lot of people in here. So we appreciate you. First off, this going back, if you missed the beginning of the show, I know people come in and out, is that Joe Douglas made a mistake. And I think a lot of us are aware that it is more likely than not that Bryce Huff is not going to be here next year. That he's starting next week, basically, is when the legal tampering period starts on Monday at noon, and then free agency starts on Wednesday at 4, that he will not be a member of the team. And if that's true, Joe Douglas rejected multiple trade calls. I've heard from a year ago, Pelissero reported from training camp and also the trade deadline are multiple points last season where Joe Douglas rejected inquiries about Bryce Huff. And that seems crazy because it doesn't seem like, according to Zach Rosenblatt, they'd never had legitimate contract extension talks during the season. If that's true, why wouldn't you trade the guy? You had no legitimate contract discussions during the year. That makes absolutely no sense. Joe Douglas will be saved from this entire conversation if he re-signs Bryce Huff today, tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, the legal tampering period on a 3-year deal for $36 million. He signs him to $12 million per. The fan base would be like, Joe Douglas is a genius. Let's build him a statue. So he will get a lot of love.
Pretty much.
If he walks out the door, he being Bryce Huff, on a reasonable contract, Joe Douglas will get pelted with rocks when he leaves his home. That just is what it is. That's what's going to happen. So TBD. TBD. Should be fun.
TBD.
Italy, thanks as always for joining us, brother.
Thank you very much. Hope everyone has a good weekend. And 24 hours, everything. There's always something with this team. So we're all going to keep an eye on it.
And there's going to be something because, like I said, legal tampering period is on Monday. We have the free agency period on Wednesday. So it's about to pick up steam. It's about to pick up hype. Make sure you guys like the video. Hit subscribe down below. We're live every single day at 7:30. My father will join us tomorrow morning. That should be a trip. And looking forward to it. And then we're live in the afternoons on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 o'clock. So hopefully you guys can check us out. Thanks for tuning in. God bless. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Ciao.